Welcome to the Deep Dive. We love to get up close and personal here, and today we're tackling a topic that is both universal and, deeply individual. Intimacy and connection in relationships.
I like it.
But forget those textbook definitions. We're going straight to the source.
Okay.
Real people, real stories. The messy, beautiful reality of how intimacy actually plays out in real life.
I love that approach. It's one thing to read about all those terms like attunement and responsiveness, but when you hear how these concepts actually show up in someone's relationship, that's when it really clicks.
Exactly, and I think you'll be surprised by the range of experiences we're diving into.
Oh, I'm sure.
We've got those click moments where everything just feels magically aligned.
Right.
But also the fumbles, the miscommunications.
Of course.
Even a few laugh out loud moments that prove intimacy isn't always, serious business.
Yeah. That's so important to remember. I think we often build up these expectations, but real intimacy is about embracing the whole spectrum, the good, the awkward, and everything in between.
So let's jump right in with our first theme.
Okay.
When sparks fly.
Ooh.
We're starting with Sarah's experience. She describes those times when her partner just seems to intuitively know what she wants, responding to the smallest cues. She says it makes her feel incredibly seen and connected, like they're speaking a secret language. Have you ever felt that way, listener?
It's such a powerful feeling, isn't it? Like you're completely in sync. This is what we call attunement and responsiveness in action. But here's the thing, it's not just magic, it's a skill you can actually cultivate.
Yeah.
One technique couples can try is something called intentional mirroring. Instead of just assuming you know what your partner is thinking or feeling, take a moment to reflect back what you're seeing and hearing. You might say, "It seems like you're feeling stressed today. Is there anything I can do to help?" That simple act of acknowledging and responding to your partner's cues can make a huge difference.
That's such practical advice. It takes the pressure off of mind reading and creates space for real understanding. And speaking of taking things slow, Emily shares a story about how her partner surprised her by, slowing things down.
Oh, interesting.
She says it made the experience so much more intense and memorable.
Think of it like this. When you savor a piece of chocolate, you let it melt slowly on your tongue to appreciate the subtle flavors. It's the same with intimacy. By slowing down, you create space for heightened sensations, deeper connection, and a more mindful experience. It's about being present in each moment, rather than rushing towards a destination.
It's like hitting the pause button on autopilot and really tuning into your senses as your partner.
Exactly.
But of course, as we all know, things don't always flow so effortlessly.
Sadly, no.
Which brings us to our next theme.
Okay.
Navigating miscommunication.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And honestly, who hasn't experienced this in their relationships?
Yeah, right.
Amelia kicks us off with a relatable experience. Pure frustration when her partner misses her cues, leaving her feeling unseen and unheard.
Miscommunication is so common, especially when it comes to intimacy. It often stems from differences in communication styles. Some people are very direct communicators, while others are more subtle or indirect. It's important to recognize your own style and your partner's. For example, if you tend to hint rather than directly state your needs, you might need to be more explicit. You could say something like, "I love it when you," or "I'm not really in the mood tonight. Could we just cuddle instead?"
Being upfront can be so powerful. It takes the guesswork out of the equation.
It really does.
And then we have Rachel, who felt disappointed when her partner rushed things like he wasn't fully present. She craved a slower, more mindful experience.
Rachel's experience brings up a crucial point, the importance of consent and checking in. Even if you've been with your partner for a long time, it's always important to make sure you're both on the same page. A simple question like, "Is this okay?" or "What are you feeling right now?" can go a long way in creating a space of mutual respect and understanding.
It's about making intimacy a collaborative experience where both partners feel comfortable expressing their needs and desires.
Absolutely.
But here's something that might surprise you. Intimacy isn't always about the physical act.
Okay, I'm listening.
Ready to explore deeper?
Always.
Our next theme is deeper than the physical. We're going to hear from Olivia, who felt incredibly connected to her partner after he comforted her when she was feeling down. Even though it wasn't a traditionally intimate moment, it meant the world to her.
Olivia's story beautifully illustrates that intimacy can exist beyond physical touch. It's about feeling seen, understood, and cared for on a deeper level. Sometimes the most profound connections happen through emotional vulnerability and shared experiences. Think about it, listener. Have you ever felt a surge of closeness with your partner after a heart-to-heart conversation or a moment of shared vulnerability? Those moments can be incredibly bonding.
Absolutely. It's those small acts of kindness, empathy, and emotional support that build the foundation of intimacy. And Chloe had a similar experience. She felt incredibly seen and cared for when her partner noticed her hesitation during an intimate moment and checked in with her. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about his sensitivity and respect for her boundaries.
Chloe's experience highlights the importance of nonverbal communication and being attuned to your partner's subtle cues. Sometimes it's not about what's said, but how it's said. A gentle touch, a knowing glance, or simply asking, "Are you okay?" can create a sense of safety and connection. These gestures communicate a willingness to prioritize your partner's well-being and to be present with them in that moment.
It's like a silent language of intimacy, conveying care and understanding without needing words.
I love that.
But what happens when we bring our own insecurities and anxieties into the mix? That's what we're unpacking in our next theme.
Okay.
Performance pressure and vulnerability.
Ah, yes.
We're hearing from Samantha, who was surprised to learn that her partner was worried about disappointing her in intimate moments. She thought he was always so confident.
It's so common for people to feel performance pressure, especially in intimate situations. We worry about measuring up, pleasing our partner, and avoiding awkwardness. But this pressure can actually sabotage connection. It's like trying to follow a script instead of being present and authentic. So listener, if you find yourself overthinking or feeling anxious during intimate moments, try to shift your focus from performance to connection. Remember, intimacy is not about perfection. It's about being vulnerable and sharing an experience with someone you care about.
It's about letting go of that internal critic and allowing yourself to be fully present in the moment.
Exactly.
And Mia echoes this sentiment. She wishes a partner would just relax and be himself. She values authenticity and presence over trying to be perfect.
Mia's insight is spot on. Vulnerability is the key to genuine connection. When we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, imperfections, and all, it creates a safe space for intimacy to flourish. It's about being okay with not always having the right moves or saying the perfect thing. In fact, sometimes those imperfections are what make the experience more real and memorable.
So how can we create that safe space for vulnerability in our relationships?
It starts with open and honest communication. Share your fears and insecurities with your partner. Let them know that it's okay to be imperfect. And when your partner is being vulnerable with you, respond with empathy and understanding. Remember, vulnerability begets vulnerability. The more you show up authentically, the more your partner will feel safe to do the same.
It's about building that foundation of trust and acceptance where both partners feel comfortable being their true selves.
Right.
But what happens when those needs and desires aren't being met, even after attempts at communication?
That's a tough one.
That's what we're diving into next.
Okay, bring it on. Let's get real about those unspoken needs.
Our next theme is unspoken needs and finding a shared language. We're going to hear from Natalie, who felt a sense of emptiness when her partner seemed to be going through the motions without genuine engagement. She's longing for open communication and a deeper understanding of each other's desires.
Natalie's experience is a reminder that intimacy is a two-way street. It's not just about being physically present, it's about being emotionally present as well. And sometimes that means having difficult conversations about what's working and what's not. If you're feeling disconnected or unfulfilled, it's important to speak up. You might say something like, "I feel like we've been a bit out of sync lately. Can we talk about what we both enjoy and how we can make things more fulfilling for both of us?"
It's about approaching the conversation with curiosity and a desire to understand your partner's perspective.
Definitely.
And Sophia's story also highlights the importance of paying attention to what your partner enjoys. She wishes her partner would be more attuned to her responses and ask her what she likes.
Sophie's bringing up a crucial point. Pleasure is a feedback loop. It's not just about doing things to your partner, it's about doing things with your partner. And that requires paying attention to their verbal and nonverbal cues. Are they leaning in or pulling away? Are they moaning or silent? These cues can provide valuable information about what's working and what's not.
So how can couples cultivate a dynamic where pleasure and satisfaction are openly discussed?
It starts with creating a safe space for those conversations. You can start by saying something like, "Hey, I really want us both to enjoy ourselves. Can we talk about what feels good and what we'd like to explore more?" This opens up the door for a more playful and exploratory approach to intimacy.
It's about making pleasure a shared goal and being willing to learn and grow together.
Exactly.
But speaking of feeling valued, that leads us perfectly into our next theme.
Oh, you're reading my mind. Let's talk about respect.
Exactly. Our next theme is feeling valued and respected. Let's hear from Ella, who describes how her partner's respect for her, even in vulnerable moments, makes the whole experience so much richer. She never feels like she's just going along with things.
Ella's story highlights a crucial point. Feeling valued is essential for building trust and deepening connection. When we feel respected by our partners, we're more likely to feel safe and comfortable expressing our true selves, both physically and emotionally. It's about honoring each other's boundaries, listening to each other's needs, and making sure both partners feel like equal participants in the experience.
It creates that foundation of mutual respect that allows intimacy to thrive.
Yes.
And Grace shares a really interesting experience. Her partner took the initiative to ask her what she liked, and they had an open conversation about it. She was surprised by how much it helped, not just in that moment, but for their relationship overall.
Grace's anecdote beautifully illustrates the transformative power of communication, even when it comes to something as personal and potentially awkward as intimacy. By simply asking and listening, her partner created a space for them to connect on a deeper level and understand each other's desires. This type of open dialogue can be incredibly beneficial for couples. It normalizes conversations about pleasure and allows both partners to feel heard and validated.
It's like they finally found a shared language for intimacy, which can be so empowering. But, sometimes even with the best communication, things don't always go according to plan. And that's where a little humor can go a long way.
Yes, let's lighten things up a bit. Our final theme for this part of our deep dive is humor as a bridge to connection. We're going to hear from Lucy, who tells a story about a time when she and her partner just burst out laughing because everything felt so awkward and off. She loved that they could laugh about it together.
Yeah, it's like a pressure valve release.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Right.
And Hannah shares a similar story about how her partner's goofy comment made her laugh so hard during an intimate moment. It reminded her that intimacy doesn't have to be serious and intense all the time.
Hannah's experience reminds us that laughter can be incredibly bonding, especially when it comes to intimacy. When we can laugh together, it creates a sense of shared joy and connection. It also helps us to let go of inhibitions and embrace the imperfections of life and ourselves. Think about it, listener. Have you ever had a moment with your partner where something went wrong, maybe a fumble or a miscommunication, and you both just ended up laughing? Those moments can actually bring you closer together.
It's a reminder that we're all human. And sometimes the best way to connect is through shared laughter and a little bit of lightheartedness. So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear what's resonating with you, listener. Which story or theme has stood out the most so far?
Yes, and how might you apply these insights to your own relationships and experiences of intimacy? We'll be back with part 2, where we'll delve deeper into even more fascinating stories and unpack their underlying themes. Stay tuned.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Dive into the shadows of human nature with the Lost Tapes podcast, where the truths hidden beneath our daily lives are brought to light. We uncover the layers of complex relationships, hidden emotions, and raw realities, from mental health to life's hardest truths. No topic is off limits, no story too raw. The Lost Tapes podcast is your invitation to understand the unspoken facets of life. Join us and let's explore life's hidden sides, one story at a time. Don't miss out on more hidden truths. Subscribe now to the Lost Tapes podcast. Stay curious. Stay informed. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to never miss an episode.
Welcome back to the deep dive. As we delve into more of these personal stories, I'm struck by just how central communication is to this whole experience of intimacy. It's like the thread that weaves everything together.
Yeah, you're so right. It really is the foundation, upon which intimacy is built. And it's not just about talking, it's about truly listening, understanding your partner's verbal and nonverbal cues, and creating that safe space for open and honest dialogue.
Exactly. Remember Amelia's story from part 1, where she felt frustrated because her partner wasn't picking up on her subtle cues?
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
That highlights how miscommunication can lead to, feeling disconnected and unseen.
And it emphasizes the importance of understanding different communication styles. I think some people are just naturally more direct,
Right.
while others are maybe more nuanced in their expressions. The key is to recognize these differences and adapt your communication accordingly. For instance, if you're with a partner who tends to be more indirect, you might need to ask clarifying questions to ensure you're both on the same page.
Yeah, it's about being proactive and making sure your needs are being heard. And on the flip side, being receptive to your partner's communication style, even if it's different from your own. It's a dance of giving and receiving, and it takes practice.
It really does. And creating a safe space for these conversations is paramount. Imagine a garden Intimacy flourishes when the environment is nurturing and supportive.
Hmm.
So how do we cultivate that kind of environment in our relationships?
Well, I think it starts with vulnerability, which we touched upon in part 1 with Samantha and Mia.
Oh, right.
Samantha's partner was afraid of disappointing her, while Mia just wanted him to relax and be himself.
Those stories perfectly illustrate the tension between performance pressure and vulnerability. I think we all want to be seen as desirable and competent, But that desire can sometimes lead us to put on a facade,
Right.
to hide our insecurities and try to be perfect. But true intimacy requires letting go of that facade and allowing ourselves to be seen for who we really are, imperfections and all.
It's about embracing authenticity and recognizing that vulnerability is not weakness, it's actually a strength. It takes courage to show up as your true self, especially in intimate moments.
It really does. And think about it, listener. When your partner allows themselves to be vulnerable with you, doesn't it make you feel closer to them? Don't you feel more connected and trusting?
Absolutely. It creates a space for empathy and understanding, a space where both partners feel safe to let their guard down and be their most authentic selves. And when that happens, intimacy deepens.
It's like building a bridge of trust brick by brick with each act of vulnerability. And sometimes that bridge needs a little reinforcement, especially when challenges arise.
That's so true. Thinking back to Natalie and Sophia's stories, they both expressed frustration when their needs weren't being met, even after attempts at communication.
Yeah.
It's like they were both longing for a deeper connection, but something was getting lost in translation.
Yeah, their experiences underscore the importance of addressing unmet needs in a constructive way. It's not about placing blame or making your partner feel inadequate. It's about having those sometimes difficult conversations about what's working and what's not, and exploring new ways to connect.
It's about recognizing that intimacy is a dynamic process, not a static state. It requires ongoing communication, a willingness to adapt, and a shared commitment to creating a fulfilling experience for both partners.
I couldn't agree more. And sometimes that means stepping outside of our comfort zones and trying new things. It could be exploring different forms of touch, experimenting with new positions, or simply slowing down and savoring each moment. It's about approaching intimacy with a sense of curiosity and playfulness, and being open to discovering what brings both of you pleasure.
I love that. It's about making intimacy an adventure, a journey of exploration and discovery rather than a destination to be reached.
Exactly. And remember, it's not always about grand gestures or elaborate techniques. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, attention, and affection can make all the difference. Think back to Olivia's story. It was her partner's simple act of holding her and listening that made her feel so deeply connected.
Those small gestures can be incredibly powerful. They communicate love, care, and understanding on a profound level. It's like speaking the language of the heart, a language that transcends words.
I love that. And that language can be expressed in so many ways. A gentle touch, a loving glance, a thoughtful gesture. It's about being present with your partner, tuning in to their needs, and responding in a way that makes them feel seen, heard, and cherished.
And let's not forget the power of humor.
Yeah.
We ended the last segment with Lucy and Hannah's stories about finding humor in those awkward, unexpected moments.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was a great reminder that intimacy doesn't always have to be serious and intense.
Right.
Sometimes the best connections happen when we can laugh together and embrace the imperfections of life.
Absolutely. Humor can be such a powerful bonding agent. It helps us to, diffuse tension, create a more relaxed atmosphere, and remember that it's okay to not take ourselves too seriously. Those shared moments of laughter can often lead to an even deeper sense of connection and intimacy.
It's like a reminder that we're all in this together, navigating the ups and downs of relationships and life itself. And sometimes the best way to navigate those challenges is with a smile and a shared sense of humor.
So listener, as we continue our deep dive, we invite you to reflect on your own experiences with intimacy and connection. What are some of the communication styles you've encountered in your relationships? How do you navigate those differences? And how do you create a safe space for vulnerability and authenticity?
We'll be back with part 3, where we'll explore even more fascinating stories and unpack their underlying themes. Until then, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep the conversation going. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey, exploring intimacy and connection through these incredible personal stories. And honestly, I'm feeling so inspired by the honesty and vulnerability we've encountered so far.
Me too. It's been a powerful reminder that intimacy is such a multifaceted experience, shaped by communication, vulnerability, shared values, and even a good dose of humor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to a theme that really resonated with me, the importance of respect and feeling valued, which Ella so beautifully highlighted. Remember her story about how her partner's respect made her feel so safe and empowered during those intimate moments.
It was such a powerful example of how respect really lays the groundwork for a truly connected and fulfilling experience. When we feel respected by our partners, we're more likely to open up, to be vulnerable, and to fully embrace the intimacy we're sharing.
It's like respect creates that container for intimacy to flourish.
Yeah.
A safe and nurturing space where both partners feel seen, heard, and honored. And speaking of navigating those complexities of intimacy, it's important to acknowledge that it's not always smooth sailing, right? We've heard stories about miscommunication, unmet needs, and even performance anxiety challenges that can sometimes make intimacy feel like a minefield.
That's so true.
Yeah.
But these challenges are a normal part of the human experience, and it's how we navigate them that truly strengthens our connections. Think back to Amelia and Rachel both feeling frustrated because their partners weren't quite on the same page.
Yeah, their experiences underscore the importance of clear communication and being attuned to our partner's needs, even if those needs are expressed in subtle ways. It's about being willing to have those sometimes awkward or vulnerable conversations, to speak up for what we desire, and to listen deeply to what our partners are communicating, both verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly. It's about creating a dynamic of collaboration and co-creation where both partners feel empowered to express themselves and to actively shape the intimate experience they're sharing. And sometimes that co-creation involves stepping outside of our comfort zones, experimenting, and being open to new possibilities.
It's about approaching intimacy with a sense of curiosity and playfulness, remembering that there's no one right way to be intimate. What works for one couple might not work for another, and what feels good today might feel different tomorrow. It's all about discovering what works for you and your partner and being open to evolving and growing together.
And as we embrace that journey of exploration, it's important to remember that intimacy isn't just about grand gestures or elaborate techniques. Sometimes the most powerful connections happen in the simplest of moments. Remember Olivia feeling deeply connected through her partner's quiet presence and support.
It's a beautiful reminder that intimacy can be found in the everyday, in the small acts of kindness, attention, and affection, that we offer each other a gentle touch, a loving glance, a heartfelt conversation. These seemingly small gestures can speak volumes about the love and connection we share.
And let's not forget the power of laughter. We've heard stories about couples finding humor in those awkward moments, diffusing tension, and creating a shared sense of joy. It's a reminder that intimacy doesn't always have to be so serious and intense.
Sometimes the best connections happen when we can let go, laugh together, and embrace the imperfections of life. And as we wrap up this deep dive into intimacy and connection, I'm curious, listener, what are you taking away from these conversations? Which stories resonated with you the most?
And how might you apply these insights to your own relationships and experiences of intimacy? Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. What matters most is finding what works for you and your partner, creating a space where you can both feel safe, loved, and deeply connected.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the messy, beautiful world of intimacy and connection. We hope these stories have sparked your curiosity, inspired you to explore new possibilities, and reminded you of the incredible power of human connection. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep the conversation going.
Dive into the shadows of human nature with the Lost Tapes podcast, where the truths hidden beneath our daily lives are brought to light. We uncover the layers of complex relationships, hidden emotions, and raw realities, from mental health to life's hardest truths. No topic is off limits, no story too raw. The Lost Tapes podcast is your invitation to understand the unspoken facets of life. Join us and let's explore life's hidden sides, one story at a time. Don't miss out on more hidden truths. Subscribe now to the Lost Tapes podcast. Stay curious. Stay informed. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to never miss an episode.